Welcome into the Ben Burnett Show. My name is Ben Burnett. My guest today is Zach Blend, and Zach is the CEO of the Goshen Valley Boys Ranch in Waleska, Georgia. Welcome, Zach.
Thank you, Ben. You know, it's fun to be here today. We've obviously known each other for some time and have been a listener in the past, so appreciate the invite, the chance to participate a little bit.
We do. We have an ever expanding audience all around. Listeners in all 50 states, sometimes by the thousands, sometimes by the tens. It just depends. So we're going to try to put you in the thousands category.
That's my goal.
So talk to me just briefly. Talk to me about the Goshen Valley Boys Ranch and give us your mission statement and tell us what you do, and then we'll dive into you personally.
Yeah, sure. Goshen Valley, the Boys Ranch in particular, has been an agency, a ministry, a program that for the last 25 years has been designed to provide peace and purpose in the life specifically of young men living within the state foster care system. And the ranch itself, 300 acres in northwest Cherokee County, that my father actually purchased back in 1981. And then in the mid-90s, he and my mother started this journey of transitioning it into a home for children that it has been since the early 2000s, is a home for today 40 young men that are living on our campus in 6 unique homes with couples, house parents that care for them as their own. As you understand some of the circumstances related to how a child finds their way into care, abuse, neglect, abandonment, you realize the trauma that these young people have lived with. And then you realize the sensitivities built around this environment, this campus, where our young people not only are supported through family, but are also given the opportunity to receive needed therapeutic supports, educational supports. It's a very active community, is one of the reasons that I believe it's as good of an environment and as successful an environment, very outcome-minded when it comes to taking young men that have been put in tragic environments and allowing them to find self-esteem and purpose as a result of the work that we do alongside them.
When you begin the journey into running a ranch like that as the CEO now, after your father stepped down a couple of years ago, and I'm sure he's still involved in some capacity. Mm-hmm. Talk about how you find your way there. What's your educational upbringing? Because you're not a kid from Northwest Cherokee County.
No, we grew up in Atlanta, in kind of the Sandy Springs area, and when the ranch first opened. I was still in high school, focused primarily on, going to school, playing ball, went to college down in Winter Park, Florida at Rollins. And, at that point I was really removed from what was ongoing, with the Boys Ranch, to the point that when I graduated, my father kind of, was interested in me, returning home and learning more about how I could be invested in some way. And instead, I took a job down in Orlando, working for a couple of alumni who I'd gotten to know through the fraternity system, and did that work for quite a while. I actually was hired, during my senior year and was there for a year after, really focused mainly, Ben, on not wanting to work for my father.
Sure. Plenty of people run from that.
Yeah, exactly. At some point I realized that the track that I was on, mainly, sales oriented, wasn't something I was necessarily wanting to do the rest of my life either, and moved back home, back into my parents' basement. But even then was focused at that point on coaching and teaching at my high school, Holy Innocents, where I was given a chance to come back and be part of the baseball program. I was doing some teaching. And it wasn't until that summer when school was out that I really had my first connection in a purposeful way with the Boys Ranch. In part because, my father was of the mindset that says, hey, if you're going to stay in this home and live in the basement for a while, don't sit around and feel sorry for yourself when you've got all this downtime. Like, find somebody to serve. In a way, he kind of challenged me, I think, to be involved in some fashion up at the ranch, which I did. And I started to travel back and forth with him a little bit, during the week. And in the summer in particular, the kids were there on the ranch, and the chance for me more than anything to throw football, shoot baskets, fish.
You got to be a kid again.
Yeah, with these kids. And I started to hear their stories, and I started to understand the journey that they were on. And I was like, whoa. And what I knew, and it sounds really simple, but me being there meant something to them. And I had never really experienced that in life before. I had been part of successful teams. I had been part of, successful organizations. But me just showing up in the life of a young person who had not a whole lot going on for themselves at that point, trying to figure out why they had found themselves in the foster care system, the friendships that I forged with those young men truly, I think, created the inspiration for me to be on this journey that I've now been on for the last 13 or 14 years, which started as a summer intern to today having the chance not only to provide leadership to our environment, that is the Boys Ranch, but to the other 3 agencies that have now opened since then that in total are serving nearly 120 foster children and beginning to work more aggressively in how we care for families preventatively as well.
Talk to me about those 3 organizations. In
Sure.
addition to the ranch, what are you providing, and what do you look for? What opportunities are you seeking?
I talk a lot about need-based investments. So what we've done outside of our work at the Boys Ranch, really was born out of circumstances that we were experiencing. Initially, for the last 10 years, we've created a way where we can care for young men and women who are in that 18 to 21-year-old range who are still in foster care. So these are a group of kids that were not adopted, were not reunited, and have chosen on their own accord to stay in care with an understanding that through the agency is known as Goshen New Beginnings, that we will work with them so that they can obtain a high school diploma and that they can either then begin college or start a career track. Along with, now think about this, put yourselves in the shoes of an 18-year-old, learning to drive, learning to do your taxes, learning to open a bank account, learning to build a healthy relationship. In the midst of being likely a child that's been in the foster system for an extended period. So we are trying to catch them up on life skills while we're also now trying to launch them successfully into independence. And that work is extremely difficult at times. It's also extremely rewarding to see the number of young people that we've been able to, put on a track where maybe they've gone on to serve in the military, maybe they finished college, maybe they're now working in a trade. So that's part of what we now do as part of the greater Goshen Valley Foundation. We also realized a few years ago that we had a lot of boys at the ranch that on Saturdays would have to go visit their siblings somewhere else.
Right.
Because their sisters were, in another foster home, or their younger brothers were placed elsewhere. So our vision for foster care was to be able to recruit and license families to serve children in their own home, but specifically serve sibling groups. How could we create environments where siblings who we believe are better together could either be reunited into a home, or we could keep them from having to be separated as a result of there being just very few placements that are in the position to care, especially, for teenagers. The idea that, a 15-year-old, girl, has a, 4-year-old brother, that's a tough foster home to find because of the range. So we're helping to provide that solution. And today, I can share that even though that work's only gone on for a few years, we have over 60 children in foster homes now, mostly Cherokee, Cobb, Bartow County. We would like to be able to do more here in North Fulton, but we believe that not only are we creating a safer environment for children, but we've also helped to provide a solution for what was a real need for our state, which was keeping siblings together.
How is your relationship with the state, and what do you guys have to constantly do? Do you see legislation come out that you advocate for or against? Do you see opportunities for things to improve? And if there was something that you could see that could change politically, and foster care is something that people always try to put legislation on and around, and it's a messy situation by design. So you can't solve it with, a bill or a resolution. How do you guys stay involved in what's coming, and what do you see coming that would be helpful to you, or something that you want to see people get rid of?
Yeah, I think foster care for the most part is bipartisan, which is good. Yeah, it should be. I also think it's way down the list of priority, for a politician. And the truth is, tax basis, education, law enforcement. There are certain things that the Second Amendment. There are certain things that I think year to year obviously get a lot of attention. Foster care historically has not been one of those areas. As a result, I have the opinion that, funding specifically in our ability to provide the very best care possible for a child who has been put in a very at-risk circumstance. You look at inflation alone, and then you think about the rates in terms of what we personally are paid by the state to do this work. And there's work to be done. And those conversations are ongoing. And whether we get to a point where we start to see gradual increases again, I think that will be a matter of how much attention we can really get, in a season where we're going to have a governor's race, in a season where, there's, a lot of, still attention given to what's happening in Washington. So to your point, Ben, one of the challenges I have is to build those relationships in a world where we have a lot of new faces year to year. And secondly is then make it a priority. And unfortunately, foster care is one of those areas where it becomes a priority when something bad happens.
Right. We'll give a chance to shout out a couple of people. Who in the legislature has been helpful to you?
There's a representative out of the Floyd County area, Katie Dempsey. Katie's been a great friend to work with. Her role in understanding, I think, how resources can be put to use, appropriately. I think here at the county level in Cherokee, we have a good relationship with everything from Senator Brandon Beach to local representatives. I met recently with Brad Thomas, who is a freshman representative here recently, who's someone that has an interest in understanding how he can, be more involved. We're in an interesting time. I know a lot of your audience is focused on North Fulton, but there are now, with the redistricting, we will have 9 representatives associated with Cherokee County. Which in itself, I think it only takes 90 votes to pass in the House. So like 10% will be chaired. So we'll see what happens as a result. I would like to think that everyone at a state and local level feels a sense of obligation to be supportive of Goshen and the fact that we've done well with what we've been given. So the resources that we've been allotted, I think we've multiplied. The care that we've been asked to provide, we've done that and then some. So Goshen has presented itself as an entity that's easy to support. Foster care generally is a topic that is not, given the attention that maybe it should be given. And when you have transportation issues and you have healthcare issues, let alone people just running for to keep their seat, I get it. But, I will let, in my position, as CEO of the foundation, I plan on spending more time down at the Capitol, first and foremost to build those relationships, but secondarily to ensure that there's a voice for children and that those that are doing the work, there's a fair understanding of what it takes to do so.
If you're in downtown Alpharetta and you like seafood, you need to go see my friends Travis and Andy at Chiringa. And if you are making vacation plans this spring or summer, you need to go down to 30A, my buddies at Grayton Beach, and the sister restaurant Chiringa. Get yourself a frosé. There's nothing better. So, ancillary to advocating for legislation and what the state does,
sure,
your organization is a prolific promotion tool.
Sure.
Which I don't say that begrudgingly. I don't say that in a happy way. I say that in a, I think you guys would see yourself as really successful when 0 children needed your ranch, which is a little bit of kind of, if the world works as it was intended,
Sure.
there's not a need for what you guys do, but we are where we are. To make up those shortcomings, you guys have to have tremendous resources and reach to overcome gaps, because I imagine having a 300-acre ranch, that doesn't sound free to me. And I would imagine that the infrastructure investments that you need, when you never know what's going to go wrong,
Right.
And your ancillary organizations, like, I imagine you rely on a tremendous amount of private support.
Yeah, and to be honest, the way it, kind of works with the state is their expectation is that the state is only funding 80% of what it costs for us to care for children. So they have an expectation that as an agency that you are putting so much of your own funding into play, which in itself is crazy to think that here are the state's kids and, hey, we're going to expect you to do so many bake sales so that you can care for our kids. Beyond that, anything you want to do capital related, you have to raise on your own. Oh, and the concept of inflation, well, maybe we'll catch up to that down the road. So there's a whole discussion you and I could have about, kind of the financial structure of how this works. That's not why we fundraise. We fundraise because I look at it like an investment. You, Ben, for how much and for how long you're in the position to support Goshen, we want you to truly understand the transformational side of that gift in the influence and the impact that it's having, not only in the life of those children that we serve, but in the vision that we've been able to cast. Goshen in a world of continuing to kind of set the bar, where if all we ever did was have a boys ranch, that would be important work. But what if we didn't have vision to serve college-age youth or serve siblings or serve families preventatively? So for Goshen to take $1 and not only communicate how we do what we do well, but how we're also being able to put that to use to kind of accelerate our influence and our ability to really craft a stronger, healthier community. I feel a responsibility to let you know that and to do it thoughtfully and do it respectfully, and certainly do it with the utmost respect to the children we serve. But rather than just thanking you for your gift, I have to also encourage you to understand how we're putting it to use. And I think as a result, we retain donors well because they see it that way. They understand that we look at it through a lens of being able to communicate things, intentionally around where we're headed as a result of how many people are now supporting that mission, more so than just being glad that we've made it so far.
When you look forward, if you had goals for your organization, what do you, if there was a niche that you wanted to pursue or a bad idea that you wanted to weed out?
Sure.
Talk to me about how you evaluate the decisions that you make and when it's time to do something different.
Yeah, more and more I talk about the concept of root cause. And what I mean by that is that, foster care is truly the result of something terrible taking place in the life of a child. So for me to sit here and say, hey, give me all your foster kids, do I think we'll do the right job of caring for them? Yeah, but there's something almost like innately wrong in thinking it that way. Rather than saying, hey, wait, what if we were able to turn the faucet off a little bit on foster care because we were able to mobilize a workforce and a group of spirited, called individuals into the community to start to look where we have gaps, where either through parent coaching, mentoring, counseling, different forms of therapy, that we could come around families that are at risk and to help them in those times when they're most vulnerable and most likely to lose their kids into the system. That needs to happen. And not at some point, but now. Goshen Therapeutic Services, we launched about 1.5 years ago, right in the middle of all things COVID. But we launched it because we believed in it, and we knew that there were contracts available to us through the state where getting that mission off the ground by being able to work with families that DFACS has already recognized as needing those types of services. We're doing that work now all through the region. We're doing it successfully. Included in that's offering visitation assistance, transportation assistance, things of that nature. Now, to your question, bigger picture, our goal, over time, and something that I'll be spending a lot of cycles on in this coming year is, how does Goshen position itself as a core provider that would allow us to, credential ourselves through private insurance, through Medicaid, where we can start to meet with families, individuals who are in need of, mental health services or support services, who aren't necessarily, already aligned with DFACS, but are just in need of those types of supports. And that kind of work we can scale. If we have the right people and the resources, we can scale. It's tough to replicate 300-acre ranches.
Yeah. Not a lot of 300-acre parcels laying around.
And I probably won't do that again.
Right.
But I could have 300 people out meeting, connecting, supporting through that same service, through that same spirit that you have experienced at the ranch. That is replicatable. And that's our goal.
Talk about how you get people. So in full disclosure, before I had kids, I used to come out there on a monthly basis and meet lots of it's how we know each other.
Right.
And I noticed that there's probably not a lot of people from North Fulton that make that journey, although there's probably some. I know you guys do a very concentrated effort in Cherokee County, which is, if the light that shines the brightest at home, that makes sense.
Sure.
How do you get in front of somebody like me? How do you get in front of somebody like Carl? Because I don't know the answer, but yet you did.
Right.
How do you guys attract is the wrong word, but attract people to come out there? Because that's how you ultimately form your volunteer base, your donor base, because it's the secret sauce to what you guys do. And I want you to tell people what it is, because there's plenty of NGOs out there that need to steal your playbook.
Right. Well, I'll tell you a quick, this is a funny story. This is early days, me deciding, okay, I'm going to do this thing called Goshen. So in the early days of, hey, Zach, okay, what's your role? Well, part of my role was to raise awareness. Part of my role was to fundraise. And I remember my father one day handing me the Atlanta Business Chronicle book of lists.
Yep. Every year.
It's like thick.
Carl just chimed in, and that's rare.
Thick like the yellow pages. He goes, start here. And I was like, what the heck do I do with this? So I started thumbing through it, and I landed on the 25 largest churches in the Atlanta area. Number 2 on that list happened to be First Baptist Church of Woodstock
it's
in
huge.
Cherokee County. So I was like, well, heck, at least we're in the same county. And this is at a point, nobody really knew much of anything about Goshen. Those that did, it'd be, oh, you're the best kept secret in Cherokee County. Oh, thanks. So
it's like the most backhanded compliment ever.
Exactly. So I took that book of list. I took the number. I remember it like it was yesterday. Called woman at First Woodstock, answered, hi, I'm Zach Blend with Goshen Valley Boys Ranch, and was hopeful I might speak to someone in your missions department. Well, long story short, that connection was made and then made to another pastor within the church. And 3 months later, we had 300 First Baptist Woodstock attendees on our ranch over the course of 3 days, where they worked like crazy and left it better than they found it. And I remember going to my dad, and they all, hey, how can we stay in touch? How can we help? What can we do? Would you like to be a donor? At a time where we didn't have, much to offer, and, everything was almost like a beg. And people, of course, we'd love to participate, because we just blood, sweat, and tears for 3 days here on the ranch. So I said, Dad, we got to replicate this as much as possible. How can we get as many people as possible here on our campus so they can meet our house parents, so they can meet our kids, so they can sense the intentionality in how we care for them, so they can sense the presence of something greater than themselves in the beauty of this place. And that's what we did. And a lot of that work, quite honestly, was my wife and I in the early days of she and I being married, hosting what started with hundreds to then thousands to now tens of thousands of people that have found their way. Now, when they're there, you've got to ensure that you create an environment where they feel connected to what you do. And it's got to be clean. It's got to be purposeful. It's got to be strategic. Now, what I've learned at a time where we're trying to do so much more is you better take those moments and you better educate them well on what you're doing outside of those walls. And more importantly, for those that are new, we need to do the right job of educating them on how they can be a part of something intentional that maybe isn't directly associated with the ranch. So what does that look like for independent living? What does that look like for foster care? But we go out and we tell the story. And we tell the story of outcomes and we tell the story of intentionality. And when given the opportunity to get people in front and get people connected and get people active, we do the right job of setting that environment and making sure that they leave feeling a bit different than how they came.
My favorite, and I get the emails.
Yeah.
Which you
follow up.
How much? How many emails do you guys send a month to your base? Is it weekly or is it biweekly?
It's biweekly. I think probably this time of year there's probably a tick more just with the holidays and the end of year. But it's a balance. You don't want your message to be watered down, but you also want it to be top of mind for folks.
So my favorite thing to read about that you guys do on a very, it's an annual basis. I love when kids graduate from high school and you have a picture of them in their military uniform, because every year I feel like you guys send kids into the service. And I don't know that that's the best thing for a child coming out of foster care, but it's certainly a pathway to a life where they may not be rich, but they will be taken care of. And I think that you have to feel super great about being able to send kids. I grew up a military kid. That is giving back if there ever was a way.
Well, these young people are our family, and it's not unlike you, Ben, sending me pictures of your kids or a Christmas card. It's like we're proud of them. We want people to understand what they've accomplished. We want, in many cases, for them to understand that they might be the first one in their family to graduate. We want them to understand the number of classes they had to catch up on to get to that point. We want them to understand that they have the opportunity to be young people that can be achievement-based, and that, yes, that diploma is important, but more so all the work that went into it. We love our kids, and we'll continue to. And the day that we get so big that we can't truly love them and support them and be intentional around how we allow others to know that they have truly, in all that they've faced, continue to find ways to overcome, that'll be a day that Goshen looks different, but I don't plan for that anytime soon.
If you're in North Fulton and you're in need of a golf cart, contact my friends at Low Speed Vehicles of Alpharetta, your place for easy-go golf carts. How, if there was an area that you were looking to for support, or a frontier that you guys were looking to within Metro Atlanta, where are you trying to reach to educate next?
Yeah, I think that, with scale, scale specific really to talent and to call. So I think a majority of our workforce is really in that kind of Cherokee, Cobb, Bartow area. Not that there's not a really talented workforce in Fulton and Forsyth. So for Goshen to continue to have opportunities, not unlike this, conversation we're having, where more people are hearing about the success of our work, the mission behind it, the reason to say, hey, we want to be part of that team. So that might look like a couple things. We are Goshen has 89 full-time employees. We're not.
You're not super small.
We're not super small. We've grown, considerably. And with that has come all kinds of fun with, insurance and everything else. But there are opportunities, whether it be employment. We certainly are regularly recruiting foster families, whether it be primary or respite. We will have quarterly impact trainings where families from all over the region can plug in. We certainly are looking for, in some cases, contractors, people that can serve in a capacity where, they can supervise visitation or they can provide, transportation supports. Obviously, those that are interested in volunteering, we are back. Second Saturdays are happening again.
Tell me what a second Saturday is.
So a second Saturday is the second Saturday of every month. We're at the ranch between typically 10 a.m. and about 12:30. We are creating avenues where volunteers can come out and join us and participate in a service-related project where not only they're going to see our campus, meet some of our staff, but they're also going to have the opportunity to do something, purposeful. So that work, typically on average, we'll have about 100 people per Saturday. Those could be local teams, small groups, school groups. But even as families that you want to sign up, you can go to our website, goshenvalley.org, and you can, go to the service drop down and sign up to come or bring people with you if you want to come see the ranch. And really, the idea that Goshen Valley is a short-term mission is really important to me personally. I've had the opportunity on 3 occasions to travel in Nicaragua for, 10-day trips. And those were really formative at that point in my life as I was thinking about what I wanted to do long term. Not everybody gets that experience, but we've had hundreds of families think of Goshen as that place where they can come and they can kind of understand why there is need, like foster care, in our community and how they can play a part of that. And, Second Saturday is a great onboard and experience for someone who's looking for them and maybe, their children to experience that.
That's cool. Well, we will keep it in mind. So we drop these every other week from more or less the week school goes back in January, which
Right.
is, by the way, I don't want to tell anybody, it's before Christmas. I didn't actually do this and just put it out the next day. We will do that. And we've talked to Hans and the Appens about putting something in the paper to support both the episode and you guys and seeing where we can take it in social media in advance of one of those so that if we can be a part of your success to promote as much as we can, put some money behind it when we roll out the Facebook types of things in support of all the episodes. Happy to, man. We're kind of the inverse of you, as Carl and I have talked about what we wanted to do for the second part of the 4th season. I was like, you know what, man, let's go to Cherokee County and let's go to Forsyth County and let's see who we can unpack, because we've done a really good job of, I won't say saturating North Fulton, but saturating North Fulton. And it's a big world. Like, we're not zero-sum game people to where the only thing that matters is the 4 corners of the 26 square miles in Alpharetta. We want to be able to shine positive lights on good things and good organizations. And there's not enough people out there. You can find all the podcasts you ever want to find with people daggering each other over politics or Barstool Sports or pick one. And I love them all too. Yeah. But, our listener base is very loyal. And I think that we can do some good things to drive time and attention
be fantastic
to you guys, especially over the course, if we can put it out there for the course of 2 weeks to supplement this, because you've given a really good high level of what you guys do. And I just want y'all to know, in the state of Georgia, if it's not the prettiest 300 acres that exists, it is really, really, really close. That. Zach Blinn, anything you want to leave us with? Carl, you got a question? Carl's a man a few words. Zach, anything you want to close with?
Yeah, Ben, I've admired the platform that you really created over the last couple of years, and for Goshen to be part of that, means a lot to me personally, and would love to see some of your listeners and meet them personally here in the year to come. So thank you so much.
You're not ready for the number of people who are going to show up there. It's been another episode of the Ben Burnett Show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.